What is up, everyone? Tay here. It's been a while since my last video, but Fantastic Four First Steps just came out today. I just saw it, and we have a lot to talk about. I want to do a short review talking about my thoughts and opinions of the movie, and then we got to get into some bigger, more important stuff regarding how the movie has set up Doctor Doom and the events of Avengers Doomsday, and also how certain events that were in the movie seem to directly connect and perhaps confirm some pretty big plot leaks for Doomsday. Now, this is going to be a spoiler-filled video because I'm not very good at doing non-spoiler reviews. So we're going to be getting into spoiler territory, so if you have not seen the movie yet, you might want to wait to watch this until after you have. So just fair warning on that. And then also don't forget to watch until the end of the video because we do have very long overdue super thanks I need to respond to. So yeah, we're going to get to those at the end of the video, talking more about Avengers Doomsday stuff, I'm sure. So yeah, watch until the end for those. And as always, remember that if you would like to leave a super thanks with a question or a comment on this video, that those really help out the channel a lot, and that I will read and respond to those in one of the upcoming videos. So yeah, get your questions in or leave your comments, all that. And let's talk about my thoughts on Fantastic Four First Steps. And first off, I'll say just right off the bat, I really like the movie. And I know that the movie has gotten very good early reviews. So I was pretty hopeful that the movie was going to be good. And I've also loved the trailers that have all released, in the lead up to the film. But there's still that little bit of doubt, oh, I hope it doesn't suck. Plus, I don't really read too much into Rotten Tomatoes scores for the most part. Yeah, it was great to see that it had a high score, but there's plenty of times where I totally disagree with the critics. But in this case, I do agree. I thought the movie was really good, really worked really well. The whole alternate 60s retro-futuristic universe was really cool to see. And Kevin Feige recently confirmed that we will be seeing that universe once again in Avengers Doomsday, and that's definitely something I'm going to talk about a lot more in my follow-up video that I'm working on right now, where we're really going to dig into some of this stuff. And one of the things that I really appreciated about the movie is that it's relatively serious. Of course, there are moments of humor and levity, but it never crosses that boundary into being silly. Because one of my biggest issues with certain other MCU projects is even when there are high stakes, the movie injects silly humor and these comedic joke bits that take you out of what's happening and lessen the severity of the story. It lessens the stakes. And this movie absolutely does not do that. The stakes are very high as, of course, the fate of their world is being threatened by Galactus. And you definitely feel that in the movie. You feel the sense of dread and that this might be the end for this world. And that's one of the things I thought Pedro Pascal in particular really succeeded at as Reed Richards, was expressing that sense of dread that he felt and the doubt that he felt that he might not be able to save the world from Galactus. And I will say that I thought Pedro Pascal made a pretty good Reed Richards. Maybe not the best actor they could have chosen. I do think there's other actors that would have been really good in that role as well. But I also had no complaints, and I'm looking forward to seeing him again in Avengers Doomsday interacting with Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. And Vanessa Kirby was also really good as Sue. She definitely brought a powerful yet kind of maternal aura to her role that sort of reminded me a little bit of Wanda Maximoff. And then also, as I said when this casting was first announced, I thought Joseph Quinn was perfect as Johnny Storm, and he was probably my favorite member of the team. And I do have a few minor complaints, and the first one is one that I think a lot of people are probably going to have, which is that I wish the movie would have been like 15 to 20 minutes longer. You can tell that they did take a lot of elements out of the first act of the film to make the movie more concise. And then the other thing that I was a little disappointed in was just the brevity of the final act with Galactus. The third act of the movie was really cool, when Galactus comes to New York, but I felt like it was too short. It just, there should have been a little bit more depth added to that, I thought, because Galactus doesn't really interact with the Fantastic Four that much. It's just kind of a big spectacle, him stomping through the city. but he never really has any dialogue with the characters throughout that scene or anything. And I just felt like if they would have added a little bit something else to that moment, you know, maybe some kind of conversation with Sue or Reed, or just something to make it a bit more interesting. I just thought the final battle went by a little bit too quick. Kind of similar to how I felt about the ending of the Thunderbolts. Like, I love the Thunderbolts. I thought it was really good too, but it was the same thing where I thought the third act and the final battle was just too fast. It just, like, I wish they would have added just a little bit more to it. But I definitely think it's one of the best films of the Multiverse Saga. In my opinion, it's probably not the best, but definitely up there in, like, the top 4. And definitely, by far, my favorite moment of the movie was the second act when the team travels into space to confront Galactus, because the whole vibe of that entire section of the movie is just very dark and ominous, and really just has that sense of scale and scope and epicness. And it kind of reminds me of the Dormammu scene in the first Doctor Strange movie, but way cooler. So yeah, that was my personal favorite moment, and I hope that when we eventually get a Fantastic Four sequel, that they will make it a more cosmic-based movie, because definitely the cosmic stuff is what I thought worked best. So yeah, definitely top marks for me, like an 8 out of 10. Certain things could have done a little bit better, but overall, I'm extremely pleased, extremely happy, and extremely stoked to see this team return again in Avengers Doomsday. So on that note, let's move on to the next section and talk about how this movie set up the events of Doomsday, and how also certain elements and details of it seem to confirm, or at least heavily hint to, some of the very big Avengers Doomsday leaks we've heard.
When the Mad Thinker tried to sabotage New York City, the Fantastic Four came to our rescue.
Gotcha! Alright, so I'm assuming everyone who's watching this has already seen the movie, so we can just jump right into breaking down some of the details that stood out to me of what could come back around and tie into Avengers Doomsday. Now, one of the smaller things that definitely stood out is that Reed Richards was working on the bridge in this movie. And it wasn't quite the same version of the bridge that we know from the comics. Reed in this movie was primarily using it as a teleportation device. But just with them introducing the bridge in this movie, I do think that this means that this could be something that we see a more advanced version of once we get to Avengers Doomsday, because we know that the events of Doomsday are going to take place at least 4 years after the events of the Fantastic Four movie, perhaps even more. So yeah, in that 4-year time gap from the end of the film to the post-credit scene, that definitely allows Reed Richards plenty of time to create an even more advanced version of the bridge that could be used for multiversal travel like we saw in the comics. And then besides that, of course, the big and obvious moment of the movie that ties into Avengers Doomsday is the post-credit scene, which I just mentioned. But there is one other scene at the very beginning of the film that I should probably mention first, when we see Sue giving a presentation at the UN, and we see all these different countries are represented with the leaders of those countries in their chairs. But then as it's scanning across the room, we see Dr. Doom's empty chair representing Latveria with a Latverian flag. And while I wouldn't say this is straight up confirmation, this scene definitely seems to at least heavily imply that Dr. Doom will be from the 828 universe, which is confirmed to be the name of this retro-futuristic 1960s universe that we saw in the Fantastic Four movie. So it seems to imply that Dr. Doom will be from the same universe as the Fantastic Four. Now, I suppose it's possible that there could also be a different Dr. Doom variant who is from this universe. But if that's the case, then this would be a sort of strange way to tease that, considering how ambiguous it is. I mean, if Marvel Studios wanted to make a reference to Latveria or make it clear that there is a different Doctor Doom variant that exists in this universe, there's a million other ways they could have done that would make more sense besides just showing an empty chair. Plus, on top of that, then there's also the post-credit scene. And what we see in the post-credit scene is it jumps forward by 4 years to when Franklin is now 4 years old. and Sue is in the Baxter building reading him a story, and as she gets up to grab another book, she hears a teleportation device and walks back in the living room to see Dr. Doom sitting in front of Franklin with his mask off and Franklin reaching up, touching his face. And even though we only see a brief glimpse at Dr. Doom, this post-credit scene is still a really big deal because it confirms a lot of stuff and a lot of leaks that have come out over the past few months regarding Avengers Doomsday. Because what was said in several of these leaks that have been going around the past few months is that Franklin Richards would be a key element in Dr. Doom's bigger plans to take over the multiverse, and that Dr. Doom would show up at the end of the Fantastic Four movie and take Franklin Richards. Now, in the post-credit scene, we didn't actually see Dr. Doom take Franklin, but that's definitely what's implied to happen. And just this post-credit scene alone seems to be a pretty big indicator that Dr. Doom is likely from the 828 universe. Because otherwise, how would Dr. Doom know about Franklin and his powers in the first place? I mean, of course, it is possible that he could have learned about him while exploring the multiverse, that he could have some kind of technology that discovered Franklin Richards and his power signature from a different reality. But it would definitely be a lot easier for the Russo brothers and Marvel Studios to explain his backstory if he just comes from the same universe as the Fantastic Four. Because if Doom does come from the 828 universe, then this will likely mean that once we get to Avengers Doomsday, it will likely be revealed that Dr. Doom and the Fantastic Four do actually know each other and do have some kind of past relationship from the 828 universe, just like they did in the comics. You know, that before Reed Richards and Sue and the Fantastic Four became superheroes, they could have gone to college with Dr. Doom, been friends with Dr. Doom, all that stuff. You know, all that stuff could have still happened in this universe, and we just won't hear the exposition and backstory for it until we get to Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. And again, this makes a lot of sense to me because once we do get to Avengers Doomsday, there really needs to be some characters who know who Dr. Doom is and what he is capable of so that that can then be explained to the Avengers and all of the other heroes from the 616 universe. And with Dr. Doom taking Franklin and the Fantastic Four then being on a mission to get Franklin back, and that being a big part of the story that we'll see in Avengers Doomsday, it just makes a lot of sense that they would be the characters that know Doom and have that past relationship with him, and that he would be from the same universe. So yeah, while it still isn't officially confirmed, it is looking more and more likely that Doom will be from the 828 universe, just like the Fantastic Four are. Now, if that is the case, then that does still leave the question of why Dr. Doom will have the face of Tony Stark. Because in an interview from a few months ago, the Russo brothers heavily implied that Dr. Doom's backstory in Avengers Doomsday and why he looks like Tony Stark will somehow tie into the events of Avengers Endgame and Tony's death. So with Doom potentially being from the 828 universe, it will be interesting to see how his origins will cross over with the events of Avengers Endgame and the bigger events of the 616 universe. But one of the other things that I wanted to mention that stood out to me in Fantastic Four First Steps is that it's revealed that Marvel Studios actually changed Franklin Richards' backstory on his powers from the comics. Because in the comics, Franklin is a beyond Omega level mutant with reality warping powers. But in Fantastic Four First Steps, there was no mention of him being a mutant, and instead it said that Franklin harnesses the power cosmic, the same cosmic energy that powers Galactus. Now, Marvel Studios didn't go into a lot of details in the movie regarding how exactly they will portray the power cosmic or what Franklin's specific abilities will be. But in the comics, the power cosmic is an unlimited energy source of the universe that gives its wielder a ton of different possible abilities, including molecular restructuring, teleportation, telepathy, telekinesis, creating interdimensional portals, and even resurrecting the dead, which we did actually see Franklin do with Sue at the end of the movie. And something that I've talked about in my past videos is that one of the biggest questions there is regarding Dr. Doom's story arc in Doomsday and Secret Wars is how specifically he will end up becoming a god. Because one of the key plot elements that is a central part of both versions of the Secret Wars comic is that Doctor Doom gains godlike abilities that then gives him the power to rule over Battleworld or rule over the multiverse. Now, in the more recent 2015 Secret Wars comic from Jonathan Hickman, Doom becomes a god by tricking and defeating the Beyonders and then using Owen Reese, the Molecule Man, to harness the Beyonders' powers. Because with Doctor Doom just being a mortal man, he's not strong enough to hold the Beyonders' omnipotent power. So what he does throughout that Time Runs Out in Secret Wars saga is he manipulates and controls Molecule Man and then uses him like a battery source so that he can siphon the Beyonders' godlike powers from him when he needs them. And that's basically how he becomes a god, how he becomes God Emperor Doom. And while that is a little bit similar to what happened in the original 1984 Secret Wars comic, it's not exactly the same. Because what happens in the 1984 Secret Wars comic is instead of Doom tricking the Beyonders and stealing their powers, he instead tricks Galactus and steals the power cosmic from him and then uses it in his battle against the Beyonder. And that actually isn't the first time that Doctor Doom even acquired the power cosmic in the comics. Because in Fantastic Four issue 57, which is a classic issue from I think 1966, Doctor Doom tricked Norrin Radd, the Silver Surfer, and stole the power cosmic from him and then used it to defeat the Fantastic Four and take over the world. And I bring this up because after seeing Fantastic Four First Steps, I think that the answer to how Doctor Doom will become a god in Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars is that he might end up using Franklin Richards in a similar way to how he used Molecule Man in the comics, to where he keeps Franklin around and raises him as his son, while what he's really doing, what his real plan is using Franklin as a powerful energy source that he can cipher energy from and become a god, that he can use the power cosmic to become a god. However, one of the other theories that I've discussed in past videos is that maybe instead of Doctor Doom using Franklin's powers to become a god, maybe he could instead use Wanda Maximoff's powers as the Scarlet Witch to become a god. Because as we've heard, there's been lots of scoops and rumors that Wanda Maximoff will play a very big role in the events of Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, and that her and Doctor Doom will actually be involved in some kind of romantic relationship, very similar to what happened in the Avengers Children's Crusade story. And I could also see Franklin's harnessing of the power cosmic coming into play with Doctor Doom's potential plans for the Scarlet Witch. Because according to everything we've heard from Kevin Feige and Elizabeth Olsen and just the events of the MCU since Phase 4, is that Wanda Maximoff died at the end of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now, I think we all know that whether she died or not, she'll definitely be coming back for the next two Avengers films. But considering that First Steps ended with Franklin using the power cosmic to resurrect Sue and bring her back from the dead, maybe that'll be a part of Doctor Doom's plan with Wanda Maximoff. Maybe one of the reasons he needs Franklin is so that he can use the power cosmic to bring Wanda Maximoff back to life and then use her powers as the Scarlet Witch as a part of his plan. Now, of course, that's just a theory, but I do think it makes a lot of sense. But one thing I will say regarding how Doctor Doom will become a god and get godlike powers in Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars is that if he does have both Wanda and Franklin on his side, then I think he'll probably be manipulating both of them and using both their powers. I don't think it'll just be one or the other. I think it'll be a mix. But anyways, I think we can call it here for the main section of today's video because, like I said, I am currently working on another longer video where we're going to go into more details and really dig in on the recent leaks that have come out for Avengers Doomsday, as well as recent comments made by Kevin Feige in that roundtable interview that seem to confirm a lot of what's in those leaks, and of course, just other theory talk and all that. So I think we can wrap it up and jump into the super thanks questions. So if you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, but don't go anywhere just yet because we do have those super thanks questions and comments to get to. So let's jump into those.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's jump into these super thanks questions. And like I said, these are a bit overdue, so sorry about that. And first, we have 5 from 2 of the regulars, Blackfire Warrior and also Gator Chris. Thank you very much to both of you guys. You know I always appreciate you. Then we also have one here from NerdOut8639. And this one says, I don't see how they can wrap up stuff from Eternals when after Secret Wars it will be a reboot. So they can recast the Avengers, get people like Iron Man and Captain America back, and recast X-Men like Wolverine. Not likely to wrap up any loose ends from the old pre-reboot MCU. All right, sorry, that was a little tricky to read without the commas. But yeah, this is a question, I'm assuming, regarding what I said about Marvel Studios picking up on stuff like the Eternals and other loose plot threads from earlier in the Multiverse Saga after the Multiverse Saga is over, once we get into like Phase 7 and stuff. And as I've said before, I do not think Marvel Studios are going to do some hard, complete reboot. I think it's going to be a very soft reboot or a reset. And in fact, Kevin Feige said basically the same thing in these new roundtable interviews he did last weekend, where he said that Avengers Secret Wars would reset the MCU, but would not be a full-on reboot. So I think what that means is that Marvel Studios will use the Secret Wars movie in a very similar way to what Marvel Comics did with the 2015 Secret Wars story, which did reset the Marvel multiverse, but still kept the majority of the past 616 continuity in place, but just used it to introduce new characters into the 616 universe. So I think that's what Marvel Studios will do. They'll use it to bring over the Fantastic Four into the 616 universe, and they'll also use it as a way to introduce mutants into the 616 universe as a whole, as if they were always there and just had a place within that continuity. But I still think that the past continuity, for the most part, is going to stay the same. They'll just kind of add to it. So yeah, thanks for the comment, Nerd Out. I appreciate it. And then the next one we have is 5 from Tay4E3, and this one says, Hey Tay, my name is Tay too. I just wanted to ask if you think that even with the very limited characters we have that can actually survive in space without protection, like Captain Marvel, Thor, Adam Warlock, and Monica Rambeau, that we'll actually get an intergalactic/cosmic Avengers team in Doomsday and Secret Wars. All right, thank you, Tay. And, honestly, I don't think the cosmic stuff is going to play a big role in either of the upcoming Avengers films. Because if we look back to Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, those were kind of like a merging of the grounded MCU with the cosmic MCU. And I think what we're going to get with Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars is that they will be merging the grounded with the multiversal. So while I do think we'll probably see a few scenes that occur in space, overall, I don't think space or the cosmic stuff is really going to play a big role. It'll all be about the multiverse. So I don't think it'll really be a factor. But yeah, I appreciate the question, and it's cool to see another Tay out there. Because a lot of you guys don't know this. You think that Tay is short for Taylor, but it's not. It's just Tay. So yeah, thanks for that, dude. And then the last one we have is 15 from my dude, Aaron. And this one says, Hey Tay, it's Aaron. It's been a while. I wanted to switch it up a bit and ask you a rare DC question. When are you going to do an updated DC video? I know DC has been lacking for years, but with Superman out, I'm curious to see what plans the DCU have next and what momentum that builds. I remember you doing a DC video about 2 years back, and I'd love it if you can do an annual DC video with updates here and there. Are you going to do an annual DC update video, and what are your thoughts generally about where the DCU is headed? All right, I'm glad you brought this up, Aaron, because I haven't really talked about Superman and the DCU in quite a while. And I did enjoy making that DCU video a few years ago, but the truth is it didn't do great numbers, so that's never something that, gives you a lot of ambition to continue that. However, at the same time, I have said that I probably will talk about the DCU as it starts to grow and as there's more to talk about. And I did see the Superman movie, and honestly, I thought it was okay. I was hoping it was going to be really good because I am a James Gunn fan. So I was hopeful that the Superman movie was going to be great, especially with all the pressure that he had on him to kick off the DCU. And honestly, I thought it was just okay. I thought there were moments that worked. I thought Nicholas Hoult was great as Lex Luthor. And I did like David Corenswet as Superman. I thought he was good. But there was just certain aspects of the movie I didn't think worked real well. I got sick of Crypto really fast. And it just had a lot of those James Gunn-isms that work really well in a lot of his other projects, but I just didn't think fit as well with a Superman movie. And even though I thought the movie was just okay, I am still pretty stoked for the DCU overall and think it has a lot of potential. And definitely the project that I'm especially looking forward to is The Lantern Show. But honestly, the reason I haven't made another DCU video yet is because I'm always pressed for time. So when I make these videos, it's always a time crunch. So I'm always trying to make videos on topics that I'm interested in, that excite me. And there just hasn't been any news that's come out with the DCU that's given me a lot of meat to chew on that's gotten me excited to talk about in a video. I mean, there's things that I think are interesting, that are exciting, but just not enough material for me personally to do a video on. Now, I definitely do still think that I will make videos on the DCU, especially as more projects start coming out and we start to see how everything fits together. But the reason I haven't done anything in a while is just because there hasn't been as much to chew on just yet. So I'm sure it will happen, but yeah, it's just a time thing and where I want to focus my energy when I'm already on a time crunch for what I can cover. So yeah, I hope that answer suffices, dude, and I really appreciate your generous super thanks. When you leave them, you always leave good questions. But anyways, that is it for today's super thanks questions and comments. Thank you very much to all you guys, and to those of you watching, remember that if you would like to leave a super thanks with a question or a comment on this video, that those are greatly appreciated, and that I will get back to those in one of the next upcoming videos. And then, of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to support the channel, you can leave a like, or even better, share the video. And you don't have to smash the like button. You can just give it a light tap, a little caress. That will work. And if you are new to the channel and a fan of Marvel and the MCU and you are not subscribed, you should definitely do so, because that is what we talk about here. And if you missed any of my last videos on other MCU stuff, you can find those linked in the description down below. All right, cool. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Keep an eye out, because I do have a longer, more in-depth video I'm working on right now regarding Avengers Doomsday that will be out within the next few days. So yeah, watch out for that one, and I will see you then.